Fashionista. Welcome back to another reading, episode, chapter, etc. of Mere Christianity. If you weren't here last time we covered chapter 7 of this section, whatever it would be. I forget how they're really divided. I think they're books, but whatever. And just to summarize, last time, go watch the video, but also to actually summarize, it was about pretending to be a Christian will make you a better Christian. If I could summarize it in one sentence, I would say it like that. Basically, the idea is, and I've heard this idea and thought, and I do agree with it for the most part, it's this basic idea that fake it till you make it, so to speak. So it goes something like, if there are good habits, things to be doing, even if you're not necessarily that, try it and trying to force it or fake it. And inevitably, you'll become closer and closer. You'll become more like that thing. If you act and pretend to be a better Christian in terms of being, I don't know, going to church all the time, even when you don't want to, or, for whatever reason it may be, praying, getting more active there, or whatever it may be in a lot of small ways, and just, sticking up for your beliefs or, talking about it more so, etc. Faking it, even if it's not really quite genuine, faking it will bring you closer to God and Christianity and bring you more in alignment with this belief and idea. It really is just fake it till you make it. That's just the best way to summarize it. What did I say there? That's just the best way to summarize it. And I do kind of believe it to be true, because that's the case. If you just keep working at it, you'll eventually either be closer to that thing, or you will be that thing, whatever comes first. And yeah, that last chapter as well was also extremely easy and straightforward to read, I think. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But that was it. Like I said, go check out the chapter if you want to. Last time episode, there's a playlist on the channel if you want to go check that out, etc. Anyways, let's get on with this reading. Let me play my music. Ooh, Marvel vs. Capcom. I am not the biggest... Why is it not playing? There we go. I am not the biggest fan of those games, believe it or not, actually, because I am just not a big fan of tag fighters. That's a lot of stuff to remember. But I mess with some regular Street Fighter. I'll mess up with that. Or Tekken. Anyways. Is Christianity hard or easy? In the previous chapter, we were considering the Christian idea of putting on Christ, or first dressing up as a son of God, in order that you may finally become a real son. What I want to make clear is that this is not one among many jobs a Christian has to do, and it is not a sort of special exercise for the top class. It is the whole of Christianity. Christianity offers nothing else at all, and I should like to point out how it differs from ordinary ideas of morality and being good. The ordinary idea which we all have before we become Christian is this. We take at starting point our ordinary self with its various desires and interests. We then admit that something else, call it morality or decent behavior, or the good of society, has claims on this self, claims which interfere with its own desires. What we mean by being good is giving into those claims. Some of the things the ordinary self wanted to do turn out to be what we call wrong, but we must give them up. Other things which the self did not want to do turn out to be what we call right. Well, we shall have to do them, but we are hoping all the time that when all the demands have been met, the poor natural self will still have some chance and some time to get on with its own life and do what it likes. In fact, we are very like an honest man paying his taxes. He pays them all right, but he does not hope that there will be enough left over for him to live on, because we are still taking our natural self as the starting point. But he still does hope that there will be enough left over for him to live. He does hope, okay. This old language, a little weird sometimes. As long as we are thinking that way, one or other of two results is likely to follow. Either we give up trying to be good, or else we become very unhappy indeed. Or, make no mistake, if you really are going to try and meet all the demands made on the natural self, it will not have enough left over to live on. The more you obey your conscience, the more your conscience will demand of you, and your natural self, which is thus being starved and hampered and worried at every turn, will get angrier and angrier. In the end, you will either give up trying to be good, or else become one of those people who, as I say, live for others. But always in a discontented, grumbling way, always wondering why the others do not notice it more, and always making a martyr of yourself. And once you have become that, you will be a far greater pest to anyone who has to live with you than you would have been if you had remained, frankly, selfish. That's an excellent point there. Don't live for everyone, wanting them to notice it and stuff. That's kind of it. It's kind of saying as well, yeah, he's kind of saying there as well that, it's not being selfless because you're wanting people to notice and stuff. You're forcing yourself to be a martyr. It's an excellent point. Anyways, getting right along. The Christian way is different, harder and easier. Christ says, give me all. I don't want so much of your time and so much of your money and so much of your work. I want you. I have not come to torment your natural self, but to kill it. No half measures are any good. I don't want to cut off a branch here and a branch there. I want to have the whole tree down. I don't want to drill the tooth or crown it or stop it, but to have it out. Hand over the whole natural self, all the desires which you think innocent as well as the ones you think wicked, the whole outfit. I will give you a new self instead. In fact, I will give you myself. My own will shall become yours, both harder and easier than what we are all trying to do. You have noticed, I expect, that Christ himself sometimes describes the Christian way as very hard, sometimes as very easy, he says. Take up your cross, in other words, it is like going to be beaten to death in a concentration camp. In other words, it is like, well, that is quite extreme. Next minute he says, my yoke is easy and my burden light. He means both, and one can see just why both are true. Yeah, you can see the analogy. Teachers will tell you that the laziest boy in class is the one who works hardest in the end. They mean this. If you give two boys, say, a proposition in geometry to do, the one who is prepared to take trouble will try to understand it. The lazy boy will learn it by heart because for the moment, that needs less effort. But 6 months later, when they are preparing for an exam, that lazy boy is doing hours and hours of miserable drudgery over things the other boy understands and positively enjoys in a few minutes. Laziness means more work in the long run. Or look at it this way. In a battle or in mountain climbing, there's often one thing which takes a lot of pluck to do, but is also in the long run the safest thing to do. If you funk it, you will find yourself hours later in far worse danger. The cowardly thing is also the most dangerous thing. It is like that here. The terrible thing, the almost impossible thing, is to hand over your whole self and all your wishes and precautions to Christ. But it is far easier than what we are all trying to do instead. For what we are all trying to do is remain what we call ourselves, to keep personal happiness as our great aim in life, and yet, at the same time, be good. He's almost here pointing out the contradiction in it. Or, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, so to speak, rather. We are all trying to let our mind and heart go their own way, centered on money or pleasure or ambition, and hoping, in spite of this, to behave honestly and chastely and humbly. And that is exactly what Christ warned us you could not do. As he said, a thistle cannot produce figs. If I am a field that contains nothing but grass seed, I cannot produce wheat. Cutting the grass may keep it short, but I shall still produce grass and not wheat. If I want to produce wheat, the change must go deeper than the surface. I must be plowed up and re-sowed. That is why the real problem of the Christian life comes where many people do not usually look for it. It comes the very moment you wake up each morning. All your wishes and hopes for the day rush at you like wild animals, and the first job each morning consists simply in shoving them all back in. And listening to that other voice, taking that other point of view, letting that other, larger, stronger, quieter life come flowing in, and so on. All day, standing back from all your natural fussings and frettings, coming in out of the wind. We can only do it for moments at first, but from those moments, the new sort of life will be spreading through our system, because now we are letting him work at the right part of us. Is the difference between paint, which is merely laid on the surface, and a dye or stain which soaks right through. He never talked vague, idealistic gas when he said, be perfect. He meant it. He meant that we must go in for the full treatment. It is hard, but the sort of compromise we are all hankering after is harder. In fact, it is impossible. It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird. It would be a jolly sight harder for it to learn to fly while remaining an egg. We are like eggs at present, and you cannot go on indefinitely being just an ordinary, decent egg. We must be hatched or go bad. May I come back to what I said before? This is the whole of Christianity. There is nothing else. It is so easy to get muddled about that. It is easy to think that the church has a lot of different objects, education, buildings, missions, holding self-services, just as it is easy to think the state has a lot of different objects, military, political, economic, and whatnot. But in a way, things are much simpler than that. The state exists simply to promote and to protect the ordinary happiness of human beings in this life. A husband and wife chatting over a fire, a couple of friends having some game of darts in a pub, a man reading a book in his own room or digging in his own garden, that is what the state is here for, and unless they are helping to increase and prolong and protect such moments, all the laws, parliaments, armies, courts, police, and economics, etc., are simply a waste of time. In the same way, the church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ, to make them little Christs. If they are not doing that, all the cathedrals, clergy, missions, sermons, even the Bible itself, are simply a waste of time. God became man for no other purpose. If it is ever doubtful, you know whether the whole universe was created for any other purpose. It says in the Bible that the whole new universe was made for Christ and that everything is to be gathered together in Him. I do not suppose any of us can understand how this will happen, how this will happen as regards to the whole universe. We do not know what, if anything, lives in the parts of it that are millions and miles away from this earth. Even on this earth, we do not know how it applies to things other than men. After all, that is what you would expect. We have been shown the plan only insofar as it concerns ourselves. I sometimes like to imagine that I can see just how it might apply to other things. I think I can see how the higher animals are, in a sense, drawn into man, when he loves them and makes them, as he does, much more nearly human than they would otherwise be. I can even see a sense in which the dead things and plants are drawn into man as he studies them and uses and appreciates them. And if there were intelligent creatures in other worlds, they might do the same with their worlds. It might be that when intelligent creatures entered into Christ, they would, in that way, bring all the other things in along with them. But I do not know. It is only a guess. What we have been told is how we men can be drawn into Christ, can become part of that wonderful present which the young prince of the universe wants to offer to his father, that present which is himself, and therefore us in him. It is the only thing we are made for, and there are strange, exciting hints in the Bible that when we are drawn in, a great many other things in nature will begin to come right. The bad dream will be over. It will be morning. Amen to that. That's a lovely ending. That was very peaceful in the end. It was very serene. I appreciate that. Okay, that was very lovely. It kind of deviated away from what I thought it would be, honestly, initially. But I think it deviated a little bit. It just kind of, it wasn't as predictable as I thought it would be in regards to the chapter name and guessing it. But I did like that. So I guess kind of go over it, right? I believe, and I do agree with pretty much everything he's saying, where it's both easy and hard. It's easy. It's kind of easy in the same sense that God wants everyone, right? So he forgives everyone. Everyone can come to Christ, etc. But it's hard in as much as, especially to me, as a logical human being that kind of always sometimes thinks in the extremes, does think it's like, okay, so God really, really wants to be the one sole thing in our life that we like are dedicated to. It's one of those things where this whole idea, or like the stereotypical, I say, dishonest and bad version of that people have Christians and religion in their head of like a psychopath doing psychopathic things. It's not accurate, and I disagree with that notion. But it's one of those things where if that were true, and if the things that person were doing were good, that would kind of be the level or the way we would look at them in terms of if people were actually that crazy about Christ and God and Christianity. I think we, even probably other Christians, would probably look at them sideways a little bit, because it'd be so unnatural and weird for us as human beings, as these hairless murder apes, so to speak, that mostly derive to just serve ourselves, to see someone actually be that all in on Jesus and Christ and God and doing the mission. It's very weird and say unnatural for us, or at the very least weird for us to see someone be all that in. It's kind of like, to maybe put it simply, this idea I'm talking about. It's kind of like when you see someone, a weird person who's just like all about this one thing, and they're like really obsessed with it to the point where every word, sentence out of their mouth is about this thing, whether it be like, I don't know, an anime, a show, a toy series, a car, etc. That type of thing, to the point where you're saying like, bro, do you talk about or have any other interest, or do you like anything else? It's kind of like that idea that God wants us to actually be about. I think there's probably not a middle ground or gray area, but I think there's an area or a description of it and a look of it where it's not that extreme or insane, and it is regular, so to speak. But I just don't think we can reach that very often or that easily. Like he says, it is hard and easy, and I don't disagree with that notion. But yeah, that was good. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the book. Thank you so much for stopping by, sticking with me, for watching and listening and reading this. Check out some of my other videos, or check out the playlist for the previous video. Thanks so much for showing up. God bless you guys. Have a good time.